Welcome to the podcast of the Political Page blog with commentary from an attorney and entrepreneur on the political and social issues of the day, from a rationalist, libertarian, and often irreverent perspective. This is Political Page, and here's what's on my mind today. Hello and welcome to the blog for the 16th of May 2019. This one's entitled, Lord of the Flies in $2,500 Suits. Now, there was this infamous sociological experiment, and what they did is they took laboratory rats, and these rats are pretty much raised together. They generally coexisted relatively peacefully, and they subjected them to stressors. Now, stressors can be anything that stresses the rats. In their case, crowding or maybe an unavoidable external threat. And what happened is interesting. Cruel but interesting. The rats stopped their cooperative lifestyle and they turned on one another viciously. Mayhem ensued. Now, one might think that sociological experiment was really inhumanely cruel to our furred laboratory friends, and now it becomes apparent that it wasn't even necessary, because if we had simply waited for a while and watched this current crop of human rodents repeat the process, we would have found the same result. Now, let's go back for a moment. You got to realize that for the first 2 years of the Trump administration, we didn't have an attorney general. Oh, I know, we had Jeff Sessions, right? And Jeff was pretty much a decent conservative. He was obviously an early Trump supporter. He always seemed to be like a decent guy, but inexplicably, he recused himself from anything dealing with the Trump campaign, Russia, the Clinton misdeeds, and basically, anything remotely related to federal law enforcement, despite having nothing to do with any alleged misdeed in his past. And wouldn't it be interesting to find out if maybe somebody had something on Sessions? I mean, it's so irrational, the entire thing, the recusal, then the staying in the office after the recusal, because he basically neutered the post of Attorney General for 2 full years. Oh, and I have to tell you, it was a source of such frustration to me and to probably anybody out here in the real world, because without any kind of direction at the helm, the Mueller investigation went everywhere. And what it determined was not that there was any collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. What it really disclosed was that there was the most unsavory level of corruption of the massive federal spy and law enforcement apparatus to serve the political interests of the Obama administration and the Democrat Party. And the Attorney General sat silent. Until the glorious day when Jeff Sessions retired and Attorney General William Barr took the position. And with his assumption of that position, everything has changed. The origin of the Russian probe and the methodology as it was applied is now under inquiry by several independent investigators. And the rats are starting to sweat. And what it comes down to is this. It is undeniable that the Obama administration, the FBI under Comey, the CIA under Brennan, the NSA under Clapper, used a Clinton-purchased, completely fictional opposition research dossier to obtain anti-terrorism spying warrants against the Trump campaign. Their motions to the secretive FISA court vaguely admitted that the author may have been motivated by political issues, but they didn't identify the Clinton campaign. Instead, the motions insisted that the dossier allegations were corroborated by independent press reports. And what were those independent press reports? They were reports of the dossier. When Comey went in to, quote, brief Trump about the document, he did it intentionally so that he could create a story, what they call a, quote, news hook, that would permit the slavering press to finally publish the salacious detail of that dossier that they had been sitting on. It was all a setup. And so, in short, someone, Comey, Brennan, Clapper, I don't know, maybe all three, they bootstrapped their way to probable cause for a warrant by using their information to corroborate their own information. And then they took false information about the travels of that poor Trump aide Page and the hapless fumbling of that Trump aide Papadopoulos, who was trying to deal with CIA spies that were sent unsuccessfully to entrap him into saying something, to bolster the fake narrative of the dossier that they had released to the press and added to the bootstrapping. And finally, Comey intentionally leaks classified information to a New York Times journalist with the admitted intent of trying to trigger a special counsel investigation, and that special counsel did get appointed. And had he been less constrained by either, I don't know what did it, ethical qualms maybe, or the intense scrutiny he was under by Republicans, had he been less constrained, he legitimately could have effectively removed a sitting president of the United States, and they still won't let it go. even after that 2 years determined that there was no collusion whatsoever, they are still continuing to reinvestigate the stuff that was investigated, and they're investigating the investigators. They just held Attorney General Barr in contempt of Congress for failing to give them information publicly. It was available to them privately, by the way, but for failing to publicly release information that he is prohibited by federal law from releasing. He had a choice. You can either break the federal law and go to the hoosegow, or you can be held in contempt by Congress. And he got held in contempt by Congress. I don't blame him. You know, we are seeing some examples of the stress. First of all, poor former FBI Director Comey has really lost his underpinnings. First of all, he started tweeting these adolescent existential angst selfies of himself standing amid the towering pines, raising questions. I think that was his comment, actually. So many questions. And that was a little weird, but now he just penned an op-ed in the New York Times in which he says that President Trump eats your soul in small bites. My goodness, nothing unstable to see here, folks. Move along. But all enjoyable schadenfreude about the state of Mr. Comey's mental condition aside, there is a serious issue here. And the issue is that someone of the three, or maybe all three of them together, insisted that an uncorroborated, clearly fallacious piece of opposition research paid for by the corrupt Clinton political machine would be put in front of a secret FISA court and shown to that court to be reliable, corroborated intelligence. That's not a good thing, folks, and Attorney General Barr is going to find out who did it. And that has put the rats in a frenzy. Comey says it was Brennan. Brennan says it was Comey. Brennan says Clapper will say it was Comey, but Clapper isn't saying. And everyone is biting the tails of everyone else. You want a quick sampling? I'll run through it. Trey Gowdy, you know him, right? He was the former U.S. representative. He retired in 2018. Now he's doing commentary on Fox and other places. Anyway, he has had extensive access to testimony and evidence that hasn't yet been made public. And all he will say is that he pointedly recommends that AG Barr and his handpicked prosecutor, John Durham, check the emails from CIA Director Brennan and FBI Director Comey in December 2016. You can't be pointed any more directly than that to somewhere. Now, Gowdy concludes that maybe Comey has the better argument than Brennan about who did what. Senator Rand Paul, he has completely the contrary evidence. He has a high-level source telling him that it was Brennan himself who insisted the dossier be used to get a spying warrant. Now, Comey, meanwhile, told subordinates that Clapper wanted the dossier used in the intelligence community assessment, they call it the ICA, as, quote, crown material, whatever that means. But Clapper has already testified under oath that he didn't use the dossier for the ICA. Now, it's not easy to find out independently whether Clapper used it because Clapper broke with all NSA policy and wrote the ICA alone, with only a couple of his trusted lackeys and running the 17 U.S. intelligence agencies which otherwise would have had to review the document. Now, one source insists that Comey personally pushed for the dossier, but that aging journalistic icon Bob Woodward, he says his sources indicate it was the CIA under Brennan, and on it goes. It's all breaking down, people. And let's add one other point in here. The pressure's not only coming from AG Barr and Prosecutor Durham. There's also an Inspector General's report that should be coming out in May or June. Apparently he's been doing a lot of work on it, and he was just waiting for the Mueller report, I suppose, to come out before he put in his findings. But things have been breaking so fast and furious with all the finger pointing back and forth between the people who are responsible for this debacle that he keeps on having to add things to his report as well. So there's pressure coming from several different directions on these people. And when you come down to it, it's this. Somebody used a fake dossier to get a baseless warrant to spy on an American political campaign. And all three of the prime suspects, Comey, Brennan, Clapper, they're all trying to chew off their own legs and those of their fellows in order to escape a trap of their own making. This is a bloodbath. It's like watching Lord of the Flies wearing $2,500 suits. Grab some popcorn. Thank you for tuning in to the Political Page podcast today. Original blog articles, complete with a lot more information and great links to original source material, can be found anytime on politicalpage.net. That's political, P-A-I-G-E, .net.